Well, we got some new numbers out here, and by and large, good news for this woman. We're going to run through them and debate what they all add up to. Then, Trump's running mate is going against the Donald, at least in one endorsement. We're going to tell you what Mike Pence did and how the Donald decided to handle it. Also, Trump worries a lot of military guys. We don't have time to list them all here or all the inappropriate things that he has said to concern him or promises to do if elected. Our top military analyst, who's also an Iraq war vet, he's here to weigh in. Evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French, and we start tonight with some brand new poll numbers. This poll, it's from Fox News, shows Hillary Clinton jumping out to a 10-point lead. She's gotten a 5-point bump since Fox's last poll that was conducted before the conventions. And if you want to break it down with the key battleground states here, the news not much better for the Donald. Clinton, she has a double-digit lead in New Hampshire, as well as Pennsylvania, and solid leads in states like Michigan and the ever-important Florida. And check out this electoral map, and this is from well-respected UVA Center of Politics. Larry Sabato usually leans to the right here, and he's good. He projects a 347 to 191 electoral victory for Hillary Clinton. Now, of course, we have the Trump controversy of the day. It was a better day than yesterday, but still there's always something, right? Trump, he's refused to support House Speaker Paul Ryan in his Wisconsin congressional primary. You can argue that's payback for Ryan's late or even tepid endorsement of Trump. But Trump's running mate, Mike Pence, he decided he wasn't just going to endorse Ryan. He was going to give a full-throated endorsement saying that he would not only support him and endorse him, but he'd even work to help him get elected. All right, let's bring in our panel right now. A lot to process. Former Democratic New Jersey Congressman Steve Rothman, to his left Dominic Carter, political journalist and author, conservative strategist Bill O'Reilly, and Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. And Andrew, I'll start with you on the math here. Yes, we'll go through all the caveats. It's early August. A lot can happen, blah, 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 blah. I got that. But when you break down the national number of 10 and then you look at the states, and in New Hampshire, it's not just that Trump's losing by 15 points. Kelly Ayotte, the sitting senator there, Republican, she's now double digits that she's trailing as well. The implication is you can look at some of these and there could be, real ideas that there could be negative coattails if things don't turn around soon. It seems that there could be a cause and effect to what we've seen the last 2 days.
Well, when we get big swings in the national popular vote, like we're seeing right now with a 10-point lead in the Fox poll, that tends to move the needle in other states and in other state races. So places like Iowa, which should be a fairly safe Republican state, even Indiana and Arizona could be in play for Hillary Clinton to win. And as a result, it winds up in a lot of cases impacting, as you were saying, the down ticket races. So the Senate, the Republicans need to hold on, or I think Democrats need to win about 5 seats if they win the White House to get control of the Senate. That is much closer to being within grasp right now. If the numbers stay where they are, of course, I tend to think it'll tighten between now and November. But
you would think a little bit, but the map for Trump to get there, to that magic number 270, Bill, it gets harder and harder, especially when certain states, he's got to prioritize where he's going to go. And now you got to win Florida, you got to win Ohio, you got to win Pennsylvania if you're him, pretty much. But, well, maybe he can play in the Rust Belt better than other Republicans. So many places you take for granted are now in play. It really hurts a campaign, even hypothetically if it was organized, to figure out how to both stem the bleeding and then to try and bring back some of those voters.
When Georgia and Utah are in play for the Democrats, you got a major problem if you're a Republican candidate. And North Carolina's in play as well, and that's been a pretty steady Republican state. Trump came out of the convention, in the lead and with a decent amount of momentum. And it's unbelievable what he's done in just the last bunch of days.
Political malpractice like I've never seen.
It's just extraordinary. I mean, what you're seeing, though, is you have the base Trump voters, some who may be watching now, at 39 or 38%, that are sticking. His numbers aren't going down, but Clinton's numbers are going up.
Well, let me ask about that base, because one of the numbers that came out of the good number for Trump is fundraising numbers, okay? And while we don't know exactly how much came from the RNC versus that he raised directly, primarily it's not the big donors, okay? People writing, I think it was $60 checks on average, something along those lines. And it was a decent number. Where's that money coming from? And then you saw crowds, 2 of them yesterday, 10 and 15,000, packed to the gills. We'll show some of the things they said in a minute, but the point is, you're seeing these big crowds and you're seeing these numbers. there is a committed core, isn't it?
There's definitely a committed core, and to his credit, he's getting a lot of small donors. I mean, it's a good thing. Anybody on either side wants small donors. He's got that. They don't even have the infrastructure to spend the money. Like they don't have the setup to even run ads. Mrs. Clinton's running ads everywhere, ground game,
or anything else.
But you're exactly right about the states in play. That's the thing, is where Trump was doing well. The Pennsylvania thing especially hurts. The number in Pennsylvania, New Hampshire.
Yep.
Michigan, those were states that he really boasted that he could win, that he could put in play. And if those are slipping away, you've got a major problem.
Trump's a populist. He should be able to raise a lot of money in small amounts from a lot of people. We just saw that on the Democratic side during the primary process from another populist candidate.
Congressman, one of the things, though, is they show the scenes at these events and some of the things that are being said. I'm talking about at the Trump events. Is it a big deal? I tend to say some of this stuff is scary. What they're talking, not just about the immigrants, but some of the stuff that sounds racist, misogynist, some of the stuff they're holding up about Clinton. People who've covered presidential campaigns for the last 4 election cycles or more, they don't remember seeing anything like that in a general. Sure, you might have seen that on Pat Buchanan a little bit back in the day, but they don't see anything comparable to what they're seeing. Does it trouble you?
Yes, it does. But there's an easy solution, so to speak. If Trump loses in November, and he loses because the American people, Republicans, Independents, and Democrats say, this person isn't qualified, he's vulgar, he's coarse, he's bigoted, he's not fit to be president, then that may well have an impact pushing down that kind of vulgarity and
so you
coarseness
think, depending on what happens in November, the premise that I've even argued that he will forever have changed politics, who will get into races, how they'll run races, it may be that he'll be a cautionary tale more than something that we'll see emulated every cycle?
Yes, you know that expression, it takes a village. I believe it's an old African expression. It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to raise a populace in the United States. So if the ethos or the ethics of the country is it's not cool to be racist, it's not cool to slander other people, keep it together and tolerate one another, etc. If that's the message that comes with a Hillary victory over Donald Trump, then we will have moved society forward.
I hope you're right here, but I want to play a clip for you, Dom. And so much of the focus of this race has been the media. The role the media has played in either emboldening a candidate or whatever else. And now we're hearing from Trump, or at least Trump's team, that in effect the media is out to get him. This is Paul Manafort earlier this morning on GMA when he was talking about explaining when Donald Trump talked about the election being rigged against him.
One of the messages that Mr. Trump has been putting out the last few days, he's warned several times that this election is going to be rigged. Is that a real concern? And is it responsibly suggesting that the outcome of this election might not be legitimate?
Well, he's concerned about several things. He's concerned about the coverage of the election, which is part of the election process.
His opponents say he's gotten $2 billion in free media.
Well, but for example, 12 times, the 2 conventions, when you look at the analysis of the coverage of the 2 conventions, the Republican convention got 12 times more negative coverage than the Democratic convention.
But that's not a rigged election.
Well, but that rigs the process. If the messaging is one-sided, if the messaging is taking their narrative from one side of the campaign, that affects the messaging, absolutely.
Now, Dom, 20 minutes ago I saw the president. It was kind of funny, I thought, but he said, all right, so let me understand this about a rigged election. Usually you hear people claim about cheating after you have a game, or in this case, an election. They're doing this more than 3 months before people actually vote, and they're claiming the system's rigged against it. Trump's always believed any press is good press, and he's gotten tons of free press, more than anybody. Political genius, how much free press he's gotten. But now he's complaining about the press he's getting, But to call that rigged, that's a little dangerous. You look at some of those crowds of people that show up to go see him, and then you're telling them all the system's rigged. They're not giving you, they're not counting your vote, it's whatever. That goes from being crazy to dangerous.
Well, as of late, Mr. Trump has been a circular firing squad of one. As of late. His behavior must change if he's going to be seen as a credible candidate. To answer your question directly, that's nothing more, saying the election is rigged, that's just nothing more than a Republican talking point, or I should say a Donald Trump talking point, okay? To claim that the system is against us, look at those reporters. Some of them don't look like us. Some of them don't talk like us. The system is against us. It's not the system, it's Trump. And as far as he was never going to have the New Hampshire Senate race and so on, it's my contention. I don't think we're going to see candidates like him in the future. Donald Trump, for good, for bad, is one of a kind. You're not going to see people, they may try, but it's not going to work. And so he was never going to have coattails for down ticket races, in my opinion.
And he never cared either.
Richard, here's what I find so disturbing. Roger Stone, who's a former campaign associate of Donald Trump's and a dear lifelong friend of his, a very interesting character.
That's a nice way to put it, yeah.
A very interesting character, and someone should look into his background. As a chief advisor to Donald Trump, was seen on the internet saying that if Trump, following up on this rigged election nonsense that Trump is talking about, saying that if Trump loses the election because of this rigged system, there'll be chaos and rioting in the streets, sort of inviting an uprising when there's no cause for it, and that's not what you're supposed to do when you lose an election fair and square.
And again, we haven't had the election yet, guys.
Imagine if Al Gore wouldn't give up on the election in 2000. He basically walked away from the race when it was in the Supreme Court, after the Supreme Court ruled. If he had taken that kind of position, who knows what the reaction might have been. And the other thing is, Manafort's comments really bothered me, because not everybody gets equal number of kisses from the press. You don't like the story, change the story if you can. But if the story is that your campaign or that your convention is falling apart or that there's disunity there, then either address that topic, which they didn't throughout the course of their convention, or come up with another story to move the narrative.
And again,
it's on them, it's not on the media.
Have Melania's Trump's speech also not cribbed, but that's another point.
I just want to say on the record that I do think there's a liberal bias in the media in general, but this is a completely different animal. This is something else.
I know you got to toss to a break. What the congressman said about Roger Stone, folks, I know it's inside baseball. You need to understand a lot of Roger Stone was considered the trickster of dirty politics. He was the one that the Bush folks sent into Florida that pulled the election away and forced the count. Roger Stone firmly believes there's no bad press. You do what you have to do. You throw mud. A lot of the bad antics that you're seeing from Donald Trump are coming directly from Roger Stone.
Stone's trying to spread a rumor that Captain Khan was an Al-Qaeda agent, which is just completely outrageous.
And we're going to get into that a little bit later in the program. Coming up next, though, why what just happened in Kansas could actually tell us a lot about how Election Day might in fact turn out. It could be, as we say, a canary in the coal mine.